Namaskar and good evening to the viewers of Pandit Ravi Shankar Music Foundation. Friends, today we are in our 68th episode of Reflections. Today is a very special day for our country also and for our this session also. तीन रंग का नहीं वस्त्र, ये ध्वज देश की शान है, हर भारतीय के दिल का स्वाभिमान है, यही है गंगा, यही है हिमालय, यही हिंद की जान है, और तीन रंगों में रंगा हुआ यही अपना हिंदुस्तान है। गणतंत्र दिवस की आप सभी लोग को हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं। वी आर इन दिस 72nd रिपब्लिक डे। आज के दिन हमारे देश का संविधान लागू हुआ था। एंड सो कंटिन्यूइंग टू दिस सेशन आल्सो, वी आर अ वेरी स्पेशल एपिसोड विद गजल माइस्ट्रो इन आवर शो। एंड ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ पंडित रविशंकर म्यूजिक फाउंडेशन, आई welcome Padmashri Shri Pankaj Udhas ji to our show.
Namaskar.
Namaskar Pankaj ji.
Namaskar and
thank you so much. So kind of you that you accepted our invitation for the reflections.
Welcome.
And
जो भी ये कार्यक्रम देख रहे हैं सबको मेरा नमस्कार। और जैसे आपने कहा कि बहुत आज एक ऐसा दिन है कि हमारे सबके लिए गर्व की बात है कि आज भारत का गणतंत्र दिवस है, तो आप सबको गणतंत्र दिवस की भी बहुत बहुत सारी शुभकामनाएं।
थैंक यू पंकज जी। और मुझे आता है, देखा मैंने आपका एक पोस्ट था ऑन 7th of April which you wrote about Pandit ji, that you they went to Alaska and if you meet Eskimo living in an igloo and if you ask him from Indian music, he will definitely talk about Pandit Ravi Shankar.
Certainly, without fail. And
continue to our session today. We invite senior most disciple of Pandit ji, Gaurav Mazumdar, to our show.
Pankaj ji, namaskar. Nabarun, namaskar.
Namaskar, Gaurav ji.
Namaskar, Gaurav ji. Namaskar.
Happy Republic, Pankaj ji. What a pleasure.
Aapko bhi. Thank you. Same here. Likewise.
Have you on the show, Pankaj ji. We are really very happy. Sukanya ji from London, she is joined and she is sending her namaskar and
नमस्कार सुकन्या जी, बहुत बहुत खुशी हुई कि आपने भी हमें आज यहाँ इस चैट में ज्वाइन किया है जी।
In fact, just a few minutes before the show, she called and we were talking and she was very, very happy. And she said, almost every single day, she hears your song Ghungru Toot Gaye and she just loves it. And it's better and better.
That's very kind of
Gaurav, the Ghungru Toot Gaye, we have grown up with the song Chitti Aayi Hai.
Correct.
Grown up की आप बात कर रहे हैं, तो I will in the due course talk about growing up with Pandit ji, but क्योंकि मेरा बचपन जो है, where I was born in a small town called Jodhpur in Gujarat, and then my father, who was working for the government of India, he got transferred to a city called Rajkot, and Rajkot was fairly a big size town compared to Jodhpur where I was born. And my first memory of Pandit ji and my first memory of Pandit ji's music was not his sitar, but I remember vividly that I must have been about 7-8 years old. I had gone with my parents to see a black and white film called Anuradha. The film was an amazing film with great stalwart Balraj Sahani in the lead, and Leela Naidu was the female lead. But the best part of the film was the music. That film's music direction was by Pandit ji. Pandit ji had composed the songs for film Anuradha, and there were two songs in the film. Both were sung by Lata ji, and they were such melodious songs. One was Haye Re Wo Din Kyun Na Aaye, and the second song was Kaise Din Bite, Kaise Biti Ratiya, Piya Jane Na. And you'll not believe that those songs remained with me throughout my life, because there's such amazing melody, such fantastic compositions. And at that tender age of 7, 8, I had no clue of Panditji's sitar and Panditji, but I was so impressed with these two songs that subsequently I got inquisitive and I wanted to know who Pandit Ravi Shankar was. And that's how I was introduced to Panditji. And then I realized what a great artist he had, what a great son of India he was.
How wonderful! How wonderful! That was a great movie, Pankajji.
Yes,
Anuradha,
Anuradha was a wonderful film. Yes. It was
made
a
by
film
Rishi.
about Rishida had directed the film, and it was a movie about a doctor who was obsessed with his work and with his passion for medical, uh, his dedication. But in the bargain, he misses out on his wife, and who's equally talented.
Yes,
So it was a very complex story, but very well narrated and very well done. Though, as
and
I said, it was at such a tender age that I had seen that film, but it has still remained with me all my life.
yes,
Yes.
yes, and the songs were beautifully penned by Shailendra ji.
Shailendra ji was the poet.
Yes,
Yes, yes.
lyricist, and there were two other beautiful songs in that, Savare Savare and Jaane Kaise Sapno.
Savre was superb.
Yes,
Savre
Bhairavi
was
Bhairavi,
G Bilkul. Yes. Savre was more like a thumri or a bandish, whatever you call it.
Bandish.
And
It was
yes, it was
basically
a
a
bandish, yes.
जी.
And जाने कैसे सपनों में खो गई अखियां. So some amazing, but the point is that that speaks about this great artist that shows the huge vast canvas which he painted, he painted on, and it's unbelievable that how he in fact visualized the music which he did. It was absolutely unbelievable. And obviously, then later on, during the course of my life, so many occasions that I uh, came across Panditji's work, and I attended many of his concerts, met him personally on a couple of occasions, and good personal meetings, not small meetings, but fairly elaborate long meetings, and uh, some wonderful memories with him. And otherwise, I would put it this way, that maybe though I'm not I'm a singer, I'm not a musician, but still I feel that he played such a major role in my career, in my life, uh, in terms of being an inspiration. Because when you see an artist of his stature, when you see an artist of his passion, when you see an artist of his perseverance, his dedication, his passion, you have to get inspired, because he had some amazing qualities which I feel that made him what he was.
Absolutely. His life was totally immersed in music, and
Ji.
of course there were so many
So I remember after seeing Anuradha, I was so obsessed with Panditji, obviously his music and his work. And so I remember I was in school, and in Gujarat in those days we had one social worker who was very famous, and he was considered to be one of the most dedicated social worker in Gujarat. Uh, he was known as Ravi Shankar Maharaj, and he had done a lot of good work across Gujarat for the humanity. So when I was asked a question in an exam, a school exam, uh, about the person, to name the personality who had devoted his life to social work in Gujarat, and I remember I had written in the exam paper, in my answer paper, I had written Pandit Ravi Shankar, because I, and my teacher said, I know you sing, so you can't think of anyone else. So I said, sir, I'm sorry, but I didn't realize that it was Ravi Shankar Maharaj and not Pandit Ravi Shankar. So yes, I mean Panditji's he's with me from the time I was in school. Yes, yes.
and your journey, Pankajji, if we
Ji,
may know a little more.
ji.
Your journey in music started from a very young age.
Yes, I started singing when I was small, though it was more of hobby, and I as a child I was a big fan of Lataji as well, a big fan of Lataji, and I used to sing whole lot of Lataji songs actually, and I remember today being 26th January, being this occasion of Republic Day. I remember very clearly that I was always told by my school principal to sing "Ae Mere Watan Ke Logo" in school because I used to sing it well, and you'll be surprised. But at that stage in life, we had no access to music as such except for radio. So I remember that we used to have one small, not small, but a kind of that typical Murphy kind of Philips or Murphy, one of the brands, radio. And that used to play in the house. I have two elder brothers, Manar Udas ji and Nirmal Udas. They are also singers. They both sing and they sing very well. So me being the youngest, I always kind of got the privilege of, growing up listening to music practically 24/7 in the house. So, and my father actually, my father was very keen music lover because he had learned to play Israj as a hobby. He never took it up as a professional, but he used to play in the evenings when he used to come back from work. He would tune his Israj, and he would play one of the evening ragas very quietly on his own without any audience. So I remember listening to him on many evenings when he would come home and do that. So I guess with that kind of influence in the house, musical influence in the house, uh, the radio used to play "Ae Mere Watan Ke Logo" non-stop because in those days that song had become, because I guess it had become a national favorite because of that national spirit, because after the China aggression, after the China war, I think everyone was emotionally motivated. So I from the radio, I picked up all the words and I learned the whole song by heart from the radio. So I
How
used to
beautiful!
sing it
How
in,
beautiful!
yeah, I used to sing it in my school. And then one day I was at a function in Gujarat. They have these Navratri functions. And I was at a function. And at that function, um, uh, someone from my school, one of the teachers from my school, saw me and insisted that I must sing. So I was taken to the stage, and it was a different ball game because there were about 2,000-3,000 people there, and they had a whole band there, and so I was certainly nervous because I'd never been on a stage like that. So I gathered some courage and I sang in tune and I sang properly, and I finished the whole song. And mind you, it's a long song with four verses.
Yes.
So after I finished singing, everyone clapped, and there was a once more, and there was big hangama, and one gentleman got up, and in fact he offered 51 rupees as a prize. Said that this young kid is too good, so I must give him a prize. So, so that was my first experience of I would say, um, that being on the stage or singing or whatever you call it. After which, obviously, I joined the Sangeet Natya Academy in Rajkot, where I was growing up. And subsequently, I moved to Mumbai because my eldest brother Manhar moved to Mumbai in 1967, if I'm not, yeah, 67. And he was pursuing playback singing. And he obviously later on became a very famous playback singer. So with his shifting to Mumbai, the family shifted to Mumbai, and that's how I came to Mumbai. And then in Mumbai, I started learning under a very famous Gwalior Gharana. He was a wonderful teacher, gentleman called Master Navrang. Navrangji was an exponent of Gwalior Gharana, and he had some illuminous, he had some great disciples, one of them being Asha Bhosle. Ashaji used to learn from him. And so I got this great opportunity to learn from him. So that's how I started in Mumbai.
How nice, how wonderful. That reminds me, Pankajji,
जी,
Mere Vatan Ke Logo, uh,
जी.
is like a national song today for all of us. Another one being Sare Jahan Se Acha, which Guruji composed the music for, written by Mohammed.
Certainly. How
So,
can we not? Yes.
so, do you have any memories of Sare Jahan Se Acha Hindustan Hamara?
सारे जहां से हिंदुस्तान हमारा is a song which obviously is in the heart of every child. I remember in school singing this song regularly for all our functions, and it became a national anthem, nearly a national anthem, I would
It
say.
is,
If
yeah,
any song after Jana Gana Mana, if you can think of any song, it's Sare Jahan Se Acha Hindustan Hamara. And Panditji's composition was outstanding. And
he was hardly
obviously,
25 years old when he composed this music.
yes, I mean,
1945.
that's what I was trying to, that's what I was trying to say in the earlier, what I said earlier, that it's such a vast canvas. It's unbelievable that Panditji, I've seen some videos, I'm sure you all must have seen it, but I've seen some videos of Panditji who's conducting the whole orchestra in an all India radio studio. Can you imagine? I mean, he has some 8, 10, 15 musicians seated there, and he's counting the bars, he's counting the beat, and unbelievable passion. You can see it on his face, that passion was unparalleled.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, any memorable meetings and anything you
Yes,
would like to
Panditji, then as I said that when I came to Mumbai, by that time, obviously, I had started listening to Panditji, and what struck me the most about Panditji was obviously he was a very handsome man, and he looked unbelievable especially on the stage. His persona on the stage was outstanding. He What I loved about Panditji was that Panditji, though we all know that Panditji's background of Mahiyar Gharana, and the background of his guru Alauddin Khasan, but the fact is that Panditji was very innovative, very innovative, and he always kind of went into an area which was not touched before, which was not visited before. And like, for example, if you take Panditji's alaps, I always found that Panditji's alaps were very different from the normal alaps which you listen to when someone is playing a raga. Uh, he used to play the low notes so beautifully, which always used to, I used to be intrigued that how beautifully he used to touch the low notes. Because generally, in Alap, not so many low notes are used. I mean, yes, I mean, there is a fleeting reference, but generally, but Panditji used to really elaborate on the Kharaj notes, and so beautifully. And some of those phrases which he used to make, spontaneous phrases, were absolutely outstanding. So I guess uh, all these things got registered as a youngster. And then I feel that slowly uh, my kind of interest in his music grew. And I guess that's when I, uh, got this urge to meet him. So unfortunately for me, no doubt, I started my career in 1980, and my first album was released in 1980. But till around 1987, I didn't get an opportunity to meet Panditji, though I um, came across Panditji's concerts in Mumbai. In fact, I remembered being at one of the concerts of Panditji at Shanmukhanand Hall in Mumbai. I especially went because I was so keen to go, where Panditji did a Jugalbandi with Ali Akbar Khan Sahab.
क्या
and
बात.
it was one of the most memorable concerts that I have attended in my life. So I remember being at Shanmukhanand Hall, but then unfortunately with a large crowd there, I didn't get an opportunity to meet him. So it was in 1986 when I decided to record an album which I had a dream of putting it on a CD. Because till 1986 in India, you could either buy a long play record or you could buy a cassette. There were no CDs made in India in 1986. So I was signed up with a label, and I told the CEO that I was very keen to do to put my next album on a CD. And he turned around and told me that it was not possible because in those days we had very stringent FARA rules and various issues. Because CDs then in India did not have a single CD pressing plant. So if you had to make a CD, you had to make the CD somewhere outside India and then import it in India and then sell it in India. So the cost factor was a big worry because then the cost would get escalated to another level. But somehow I was so adamant, I was so keen. So in early '87, I recorded a CD, an album, which keeping in mind that I was producing it for a digital format. So I had recorded the album on a multi-track, and I had done the musical arrangement accordingly. And so we made a CD. The music label made the CD in UK, and the CDs were imported here in India. And it was my wish. I was very keen that I could not think of anyone else to launch this CD because I felt that this was something which was so very innovative, so very different from what was being done. And I said that there is only one artist who's been doing this all his life, who's Panditji. So I told the music label, I said, if we launch this album, it has to be Panditji. So they turned around and told me that very difficult to get hold of Panditji, very difficult to get in touch with him because half the time he's in US, he's traveling so much. So I said, well, if you can't do it, I'll try. So then fortunately, Mr. Mohan Hemadi, based in Hyderabad, was very close to Panditji. And so I got in touch with Mr. Hemadi because I met Mr. Hemadi, during my trips to Hyderabad for concerts. So he spoke to Panditji, and then I communicated with Panditji. And luckily for me, Panditji agreed to come for the launch. He happened to be in India, and he agreed. He said he would come for the launch. And I remember very clearly that we had an evening. This album was titled Shagufta. It was a beautiful album. It still remains one of my favorite albums in my career. So it was a beautiful evening. We had a function at the Oberoi Hotel in Mumbai, and it was a nice evening where Panditji launched the CD and blessed me and spoke so very well, saying that we need these young, innovative artists to take music to the next generation. And he was so happy that I had made this effort of making a CD in India. And while in the process of the concert, I very quietly asked Panditji that if he was okay for dinner, then I would like to have dinner with him. So he said, fair enough, we'll eat together. So after the function, which was at the Oberoi, I very quietly whisked Panditji away from the function. And there's a very famous restaurant here in Mumbai called China Garden, which is famous for its Chinese food. So I, along with my wife and a couple of other people, one of our sound engineers, and who had recorded a lot of Panditji's albums. And so 5, 6 of us came to China Garden. And then I sat with Panditji and I shared all my thoughts with Panditji about how I had listened to him as a child and how I had seen his film Anuradha. And I mean, I remember discussing everything with him. And the food there is exceptionally good. So Panditji really enjoyed the food. And we sat and had a long chat. In fact, we sat nearly for an hour and a half, nearly 2 hours. Yes. So I think that was one of the most memorable evening that I can think of or I can remember that evening. Unfortunately, very unfortunately, for me especially, in those days there were no mobile cameras. So this was 1987. So obviously, and there were no photographers around, and I didn't want to harass Panditji, when we were relaxing and, we were just chilling. So there were no cameras. So unfortunately, I don't have a single picture of that meeting. But I have great memory,
Those
which I'll
memories
cherish.
are in your mind and in your heart forever.
Yes, which I'll cherish for the rest of my life. Yes.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Must have been such a moment, because
Yes.
time spent with him was so special always.
Yes. Yes. And uh, I mean, if we look at Panditji, I remember as when I came to Mumbai, and then I joined St. Xavier's College, and I was in Xavier's, and in 1969, I still remember 69, 70, there was this film called Woodstock, which was released at the Eros Theatre in Mumbai, the famous theatre at Churchgate called Eros. So a whole bunch of us from college. Xavier's was very well known college for its extracurricular activities, especially music and everything. And we had a whole section of students who were very keen on the current pop music and all, the current rock and pop and everything. So those were the days of Jimi Hendrix and those famous rock stars.
Beatles.
So, Beatles. Yeah, Beatles were a little senior, but especially Jimi Hendrix and a couple of other, groups like Santana and all. And then we were about 12, 14, 16 young kids from college landed up at Eros Cinema watching Woodstock. And we had no clue, frankly speaking, because in those days there was no social media, there were no newspapers, so one had very little knowledge of what it was. While watching the film, that we realized that it was a massive music festival which was held close to New York. And then what we see Panditji performing, and that performance of Panditji at Woodstock was one of those absolutely out of this world performance, for one simple reason, that look at this artist who had such wide vision, that he was performing in front of some 100,000 plus people, and they were listening to him in pin drop silence. And I cannot believe that how Panditji could hold 100,000 people together. That was only because of his tremendous approach to music. That is because he was so passionate about propagating Indian music. I mean, it wouldn't be an exaggeration. That's the reason why that day I said that even if you go to Alaska and ask an Eskimo about Indian musician, he would say Pandit Ravi Shankar, because his sole concern was how you take Indian music across to the world. And it's unbelievable that starting from Yehudi Menuhin to George Harrison to everybody, they were spellbound by his performances. They were spellbound his persona, by his knowledge of music, the way he worked, in Laikari, the way he worked in various other aspects of music. that you feel that this is a complete artist who who is not only there to uh, just play a raga and fold and put his sitar in his case and go back. No, he was someone who wanted to make an event out of what he did, which I think was a great quality, which is unbelievable.
Beautifully put, beautifully put. Exactly, his life was a celebration, was an event itself. and
Absolutely, absolutely.
and everything he
Wherever
did in that.
wherever he went, whatever he did was an event, because he had that persona, he had that presence, he had that talent, he had that tremendous knowledge of music, and he had a tremendous passion of taking his music across to people.
And that
Tremendous.
is something, what you just mentioned. Imagine a festival like Woodstock, which is mainly popular music, mainly
Yes,
music.
yes.
For a classical Indian musician to go there with a sitar and a tabla, just two
Just
instruments,
imagine, and they had no amplification, no electronic sound, no nothing.
to make a historic concert, perform like a rock star, and be
Yes,
remembered after 50 odd years of that event. People,
certainly.
that electrifying performance. And he chose traditional ragas there. He didn't play any dhun or
No,
anything.
he didn't.
He
He
did
didn't play
traditional
anything
alas.
which was. Yes, he didn't play anything which was a mix of Indian and Western. No, he
No.
played plain raga. Yeah, and he had some great laikari with Allah Rakha Khasab. I still remember. Yeah.
And for people to sit, thousands of people, it's
Oh
like in
yes.
an open air sitting and watching him
Yes.
in awe. That was quite something. That was quite something.
And one more thing, which obviously I had saved it for my autobiography, but I would share with you,
Gee.
which is that uh, I feel so very close to Pandit ji in a different way, uh, because the house where I live in Mumbai, uh, this house belonged to Mehta family, and husband and wife Arvind Mehta and Kumud Mehta. Mrs. Kumud Mehta used to be the later stage in life. She was the chairperson of NCPA in Mumbai.
Okay.
As you know, NCPA,
Gee.
National Center for
National Center
Performing
for
Arts.
Performing.
Yes, yeah, yes. So uh, when I moved in here, they had sold this house to some builder actually, and then subsequently I bought this house from that builder. So when I met Mrs. Mehta at NCPA, she told me, she asked me, she said, Pankaj, you staying at my house is, the name is Hillside. So she asked me, she said, Pankaj, do you live at Hillside? So I said, yes, ma'am. So she told me, she said, oh, I'm so happy that you have bought the house. So I was rather surprised. So I asked her, I said, why? She said, well, I used to live there. And she said, I'm very happy that an artist is living in that house. Because she said, this house, every wall of this house is full of music.
Uh-huh.
Because Mr. and Mrs. Mehta and Mr. Mehta's father, actually her father-in-law, Mr. Mangaldas Mehta, was a solicitor. And he was, I guess, in those days, must have been a very popular solicitor. And they were a well-off family. So when Arvind Mehta and Kumud Mehta got married, Kumud Mehta was a lady who was a Maharashtrian lady, and Arvind Mehta was a Gujarati Jain. But it was a love marriage, and they got married. So when they got married, uh, they both were great music lovers, and they decided that they would not have a reception, but instead they would have a music session in the house.
How beautiful.
So it was in 1945. This
Oh
was
my.
given to me. This was told to me by Mrs. Mehta and Mr. Mehta also, Arvind Mehta also, that in 1945, a young Pandit Ravi Shankar from Calcutta had come to Mumbai, and they invited him to perform in this house.
So, how auspicious, Pankajji.
So he performed here, and she said his performance was so mind blowing that very few guests, she said maybe 30, 40, 50 people. But she said everyone was bowled over by his playing. And she said everyone knew that this artist would go somewhere else in life, go a long way. And for me, this is a very precious memory. I wish I was there to see him perform
Such a
here.
blessing,
But
Pankajji. Such a blessing.
at least every time I touch the wall, I feel that yes, there is some music of Panditji is part of this house.
Yes.
And I think that makes me feel very happy.
That is so special. Such a wonderful story. Such a wonderful story.
Yes.
That is such a
Yes.
blessing. Such a blessing. And just, I think, if I'm not wrong, very
Ji.
close to your house where you are now was the house of
Ji.
Joshipuraji, Pedder Road,
Yes.
Thames Corner. And
Yes,
that's where
that's right.
Guruji used to stay for many years with his friend Joshipuraji.
Yes. Correct. Yes.
And
So
in fact,
I can go on and on. My memories of Panditji are unbelievable.
please
And
do.
when
Please
I
tell some
when
more
I
some events. We are
no,
really
when I was told by Abhinav, I said I'll certainly like to speak about Panditji, which is within me for many years now, and this is a great opportunity to share my thoughts with everybody. And well, I certainly will have a dedicated chapter to Panditji in my book for sure, because how can I not talk about him? The great personality and great inspiration, I would say.
we are really looking forward to read that. If you allow me,
Yes.
Pankaj, there are a lot of
Ji.
people watching today. Lot of
Ji.
people. If you allow me, can I just read some of the wonderful messages
Sure,
which we
please.
got?
Please.
So
Please.
we have Keith Denmark from Chicago, Ajmer Khan from Bangladesh, Elizabeth watching from England, I guess Nisha Chatterji, Nabarun's wife, Ahir Roy from Calcutta, then Anubha Banerjee from Bombay. We have Chinama Sukanyaji watching from London. She's saying Namaskar.
Namaskar, Sukanya ji.
Then Satish ji is watching, Satish Vyas, and
Ji,
he's saying
ji.
nice to see Pankaj ji. And in fact, he's saying hello, Pankaj ji and Gaurav.
Namaskar, Satish ji.
Madhuri Sharma is watching, saying Vibhakar Bhai is watching. You know Vibhakar Bakshi from London.
Oh,
Navras-
yes.
He was in fact with us just in our last episode. He
Yes.
had a wonderful.
Navras is one of the outstanding labels. They've done some amazing work. Yes, and for last so many years. Yes.
Correct. Very high quality.
Oh,
Satish ji,
yes.
Anuradha's music by Pandit ji is monumental. Shama Divedi is watching. Nitin Sharma is watching. Nayanesh P. Mehta. Satish Vyas is saying, yes, Master Nabarun was a great guru of classical music. Our family knew him very well because of my father, late Pandit C.R. Vyas.
Yes, Panditji. Yes.
Sudeep Banerjee is watching, the ghazal singer, who's a dear friend of mine as well, Pankajji.
Ji.
Then Bhai is saying Raviji's reach was well beyond the classical music lovers, touching listeners of myriad genres and cultures. And then Satish ji is saying it was in 1983, the famous Jugalbandi of Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahab and Pandit ji.
Correct. At Chanmukhanand, yes.
Achamukhanan, correct. In
Yes.
fact, I was told, Pankaj ji, the
Ji.
hall was sold out and
Completely.
and there were still so many people. And in those days, the stage passes were sold for for 500 rupees
Yes.
in 1980.
In fact, in my entire career, I've had this principle. This is it's my personal call, but I have followed a principle that if I want to watch a concert, I would buy the tickets and go and watch it. I would never want to watch it for free.
Sure.
So when Panditji's concert was announced, in those days, the concert tickets were sold by Rhythm House. There was a very famous store in Kalagoda at Flora Fountain, which was called Rhythm House, which unfortunately closed down last year. So I obviously, because of my music and because of my work with Rhythm House, because they used to sell all my albums, and so I had an access to Rhythm House. So the day the concert was announced, I called up and I told the gentleman at Rhythm House that please block 2 tickets for me and my wife, and I said they should be in the third row because I didn't want to sit in the first row because third or the fourth row is a better view and better sound. So I still remember that I got 2 seats on the aisle, and I watched the concert. It was one of the most memorable evenings I've ever
Outstanding
witnessed.
event, outstanding concert with
Yes,
on tabla was Ustad Allah Rakha Khasab
Allah Rakha Khasa. Yes,
and
yes,
Zakir Bhai on tabla, Ustad Zakir Hussain.
correct, correct, correct.
Absolutely. Jasmine Ara Khanam from Bangladesh. Uh, Satish Vyasji saying, Pankajji, it was me who talked to Panditji while he was in Moscow for Festival of India. I called him for Sashi Patel's office in Shivsagar Estate.
Oh,
Uh,
was it?
yeah, but he's saying also Mohan must have helped in a different project.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
so then Preeti
Yes,
Singhal,
because see, Mrs. Sashi Patel was the owner of the music label. So thank
Ji,
you, Sateshji. In fact, I was not aware of this, but thank you for reminding me and thank you for letting me know. Because so when I write this incident in my book, I would certainly make a mention. Because uh, I was under the impression that it was through Mr. Hemadi that I could access Panditji's office. But I'm sure Sateshji had an access to Panditji in a much better perspective, in a much better way than anyone else, for sure.
then Preeti Singhal from Hyderabad. Vibhakar ji is saying for the Woodstock generation, Panditji's music was the complementary part of their introduction to meditation and Indian spiritual figures.
Yes, yes.
And Sukanya ji is requesting if just she can hear from you just one line of Ghungru Toot Gaye.
Yeah, sure. I would do that. Uh, just give me 2 seconds so I
Yeah.
can get my harmonium.
And Sudeep
And
Banerjee saying hello Gaurav and Pankaj sir. A lot of
hi,
people
Sudeep. How are you?
that shows your
as you said, as you said rightly, that Panditji's musical journey was a celebration.
it
It
was a
was not
celebration
just
and how
yes.
beautifully you have put it across. This session today was absolutely refreshing, Pankajji, straight
Thank you
from the
so
heart,
much.
and
Absolutely,
so
absolutely.
beautifully put by you with sheer memories, beautiful memories which
Yes,
you are
these are
carrying.
all memories. These are all memories of Panditji, and I feel that it it's something which will, as I said earlier, that this is something which will stay with me. Which will always stay with me,
And we
because
really look forward. We look forward to your autobiography and also, your wonderful dear son-in-law. Ojas is a dear friend of
oh
all of,
yes,
and
he is fortunately for us that he is such a wonderful human being and such an amazing artist. I'm sure he has a long way to go, but he is so very talented that
wonderful
I'm
artist.
sure
And
that
he plays with all of us. He's playing with Anushka, and
G, yes, I know.
and
He plays
we
with
love
Anushka ji.
working with him. We love working with him, Pankaj ji. What
G.
a pleasure to speak to you and hear you. These
G.
are all precious memories, uh, and a rightful, celebration to Panditji's 100 years.
G. I'll just sing a few lines. Thank you, Sukanya ji, and
He's very eager and thank you.
मोहे आई न जग से लाज मैं इतना जोर से नाची यार के घुंघरू टूट गए के घुंघरू टूट गए के घुंघरू टूट गए के घुंघरू टूट गए। मोहे आई न जग से लाज, मैं इतना जोर से नाची आज के घुंघरू टूट गए, के घुंघरू टूट गए, के घुंघरू टूट गए, के घुंघरू टूट गए। धरती पे न मेरे पैर लगे, बिन पिया मुझे सब गैर लगे।
क्या बात।
धरती पे न मेरे पैर लगे, बिन पिया मुझे सब गैर लगे। मुझे अंग मिले अरमानों के, मुझे पंख मिले परवानों के। जब मिला पिया का गाँव तो ऐसा लचका मेरा पाँव के घुंघरू टूट गए, के घुंघरू टूट गए, के घुंघरू टूट गए, के घुंघरू टूट गए।
Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you, thank you,
Thank you. With this, really, I mean, the session is absolutely, it's
thank you. It was
complete.
such a pleasure talking to you and Gaurav ji and everybody. And my special regards to Sukanya ji for being with us today, and all Gunijans who were who in this chat, part of this chat, Satish ji and Sudeep and Anuba and everybody. Thank you so much. And I can only say one thing, that as long as classical music is heard in India, Pandit Ravi Shankar will always be remembered. Pandit ji's name will shine like a superstar always.
And same to that context, Pankaj ji, as far as the ghazal is there, Pankaj ji is always there in everybody's heart. Not in our country, but on the global spec. Thank you coming to our show, Reflections, sharing your memories with Pandit
Thank
ji.
you so much.
And before we end the session, if you permit, a small rendition from Aryan Chatterji marking this special day.
Sure.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Namaskar. On this auspicious occasion of Republic Day, I am going to play the song Sare Jahan Se Acha, written by Sri Muhammad Iqbal ji and music composed by my Mama Dadu, Bharat Ratna Pandit Ravi Shankar ji. I wish you all a very happy Republic Day. Thank you.
And to all the viewers of Pandit Ravi Shankar Music Foundation, thank you for joining us on this special episode. And thank you from my bottom of my heart to Pankaj Udhas ji and Gaurav ji. Good night.